Welcome back to another FPL video and podcast. This will be the best budget players for the upcoming FPL season. And yes, I know I look like an absolute mug holding this microphone, but I have to adjust a few things to get the audio and lighting quality as best as I can. I am on holiday, so it won't be the same as it usually is when I'm back home. But in a couple of weeks' time, when I do return, there will be weekly deadline streams, reactions, team selections, wildcard squads, and transfer tips with other piece of content sprinkled in between. That includes UCL Fantasy when the game launches in late August to early September. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether it's for this game, FPL, UCL Fantasy, or the Club World Cup, which I covered in the summer. And on screen you can see the fixtures for the newly promoted sides, and Sunderland have by far the best fixtures to open this upcoming season. Burnley have the worst, and Leeds United are somewhere in between. All of this is covered in my Key Changes to FPL podcast, and if you want to see a video specifically focusing on Burnley, Leeds United and Sunderland players, then let me know down in the comment section below. That includes players like Granit Xhaka now, who has returned to the Premier League. Check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League and Spotify can also be found in the description. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Some players apply to different categories, so if Petrovic, who is the first budget picks player of this podcast, he would also be classed as a differential and a summer signing. So if I were to make those two separate podcasts, Petrovic could feature in both of them as he is eligible. His ownership is only 5.3% and he kept 5 clean sheets for Chelsea. The last time was in the Premier League in the 2023-24 campaign when he ended that season as the number one for Mauricio Pochettino. But ever since Enzo Maresca came into the mix, he was very bullish on Robert Sanchez, and Petrovic was sent out on loan to Ligue 1, and he's now back in the Premier League, but this time for Bournemouth, and it is Liverpool away in Game Week 1. But I think their fixtures are quite underrated in the long term. You've got Wolves at home in Game Week 2, Tottenham away, and then Brighton at home over the first 4 game weeks, and Petrovic made 75 saves. He was also a very popular option in a double game week towards the end of that campaign where he was with Chelsea. He got 5 bonus points and 71 FPL points overall, and I would argue he's a better goalkeeper than Robert Sanchez in terms of performances. But FPL wise, of course, Sanchez has that massive advantage of playing for Chelsea, and there are so many question marks about Bournemouth right now. Zabani is on the verge of joining Paris Saint-Germain at the time of this recording. Dean Howson joined Real Madrid. Milos Kerkez obviously left for Liverpool, and Kepa Arrizabalaga was the main goalkeeper last season on loan from Chelsea, but this time round Petrovic will replace him. But I think that's very smart business from Bournemouth in this position. Next up though is another goalkeeper in Kelleher, who is such a template pick with 32% ownership. His price tag is also 4.5 million, and he kept 4 clean sheets for Liverpool in the previous campaign, making 27 saves, and he also made a penalty save in this division, but also in the Champions League where I covered UCL Fantasy. He denied Kylian Mbappe in a 2-0 win for Liverpool over Real Madrid. So 45 FPL points is decent, and he's also got Sunderland away in Game Week 3, and I would say Brentford's fixtures are quite decent in the long term, so Kelleher is a nice rotational option. You might consider going for 2 4.5 million goalkeepers, and I think Kelleher and Petrovic are the best in the game. I also covered this in my Best Goalkeepers podcast. Reinildo Mandava was also mentioned in my updated draft, and amongst 4 million defenders, he is one of my favourites. I also covered him in UCL Fantasy a few years ago at Atletico Madrid, where he made so many ball recoveries. If you can translate that to the Premier League, he will contribute in terms of defensive contributions and get 2 additional points in certain games. And at this price tag, you simply can't complain. I think the other standout, I will discuss him very soon to be fair, from another newly promoted club. Those two would be my favourites, but I think Reinildo Mandava has superior fixtures as Sunderland are near the top for the fixture difficulty rating, which I've also discussed in my recent podcasts. He got no goals or assists last season, but he did play 30 games, got 7 yellow cards, and in terms of clearances, blocks and tackles, he will be very impressive for Sunderland if he can stay fit and play 35 plus games, which is what I would expect from such a high profile signing for the club. But Esteve is the other defender I was referring to just now, but Burnley's opening fixtures are really poor. You do have Sunderland at home in Game Week 2, of course, so you've got that little clash, and you might have to make a sort of prediction there, and either go for Reinildo Mandava or Esteve. But Burnley were the best defence in the Championship last season, and he got 1 goal, no assists, played 48 games, and his disciplinary record is very impressive. Only 3 yellow cards, and the ownership is 9.2%. It has doubled since I made this graphic, so he isn't a differential per se, especially compared to other players on this list. But at 4 million, I think Esteve could be a great 5th defender, so I definitely don't mind this pick whatsoever. Next up is Goodmanson, another 4 million defender, this time from Leeds United. It is Everton at home in Game Week 1, followed by Arsenal and Newcastle, but the Toon are doing really poorly in pre-season. They've lost every single game so far, and maybe Leeds could catch them cold, especially at home. At Ellen Road, I think Leeds can cause problems to a lot of Premier League teams. It is Fulham away in Game Week 4, but Goodmanson got 2 goals and 1 assist for Lille in Ligue 1 last season, playing 45 games and also getting 3 yellow cards. His ownership is only 1.9%, so he is a massive differential. I think his attacking threat might be a little overstated, but he can add the odd goal or assist here and there and be a decent asset in Fantasy Premier League this season. I don't think for defensive contributions he'll be great. And the same goes for Aiden Heaven, who might not even start in Game Week 1, with De Ligt also in the mix, and Lisandro Martinez could be back very soon. But Heaven is a decent option to bear in mind if you are looking for a defender at 4 million. His ownership is also extremely low at 2.5%. He scored no goals and also provided no assists last season, but he did get 2 bonus points and 10 FPL points overall, despite only starting a handful of games for Manchester United last season after completing a move from Arsenal. And it is Burnley at home in Game Week 3, but just like the Gunners, I think Man United have the worst fixtures over the first 6 game weeks, and it starts off with a trip, or actually just a home fixture against Arsenal there. So that is probably a kind of example of why you'd want to avoid both teams at the moment, but you'd still be more keen on Arsenal players than Man United at this moment in time. Next up in this defensive line is Mickey van der Ven, who has been a poor FPL asset over the years, but he is a quality defender with a lot of pace. I just think he breaks down far too easily, so his injury record would be a concern. And with PSG facing Tottenham Hotspur in the UEFA Super Cup final only 3 days before Game Week 1, you'd probably want to avoid van der Ven at this moment in time, despite that plum fixture against Burnley at home. Then it's Man City away, but as I've mentioned multiple times in my videos, I think tough fixtures might be good for defenders and defensive midfielders in terms of defensive contributions, because they will get more clearances, tackles and blocks to build up the CBIT and then get those defensive contribution points and be solid assets in FPL. But Van der Ven didn't score a single goal last season. He got 2 assists and 2 bonus points and only 32 overall. But as always, he missed a lot of games due to injury, and Tottenham Hotspur had one of the worst seasons in the Premier League era, finishing 17th. But I don't think their fans will mind too much, because they did win the Europa League title and their long-term fixtures are very solid. That's why Van der Ven features, and the same goes for his teammate Destiny Udogie, who was really strong at the back end of the previous campaign in the Europa League, providing some of his best performances in a Tottenham Hotspur shirt. His ownership is 10.8%, so both of them are fairly template, you could argue. He only got 1 assist, but 5 big chances is very impressive considering his game time, and 43 FPL points, of course, is quite poor, but Udogie missed a lot of last season, and Jens Spence was the clear standout in terms of the Tottenham defenders, especially in the fullback areas. But I think Spurs' fixtures do warrant that investment in the defensive line, but I'm more keen on Kudus and Solanke to cover the midfield and forward line. Next up is Mark Gay, who is linked with multiple clubs like Newcastle and Liverpool. He got no goals last season, but also 3 assists. His ownership is quite similar to the previous 2 at 13.8%, and the price tag is identical, of course, at 4.5 million. And even if Crystal Palace have these tough opening games and Mark Gay stays at the club, he can get defensive contribution points in those matches, and he provided 11 bonus points last season to deliver 116 FPL points overall. It's also worth noting that Crystal Palace's long-term fixtures are quite solid, and they've got multiple ways of covering their defensive line. With Dean Henderson between the sticks, Daniel Munoz can get defensive contributions and also goals and assists, and I think Lacroix is excellent at defensive contributions, so you've got multiple ways of covering that back line. Even Tyrick Mitchell at left wing back can get the odd goal contribution and plenty of defensive points. So I think Mark Gay is only one of multiple choices, and if he ends up moving to Newcastle or Liverpool, then maybe that will boost his appeal slightly. And I think Liverpool, of course, having a guaranteed 4.5 million starter, assuming Konate also moves, which has been heavily rumoured throughout the summer. It's definitely worth keeping an eye out on the summer transfer window, and all the updates will be provided on this channel. Let's go on to another defender though, and we are getting close to the midfielders and forwards, but Wan-Bissaka is an extremely template pick with 32.5% ownership. He got 2 goals and 6 assists last season, which was incredibly surprising to say the least. He got 15 bonus points and 118 FPL points overall in a struggling West Ham side who finished below Manchester United, for example, and in 16th place. Jarrod Bowen is Mr. Consistent. He's always going to be a solid option, even with that reclassification from a midfielder to a forward. But the second best West Ham asset is arguably Aaron Wan-Bissaka. You've also got Thomas Soucek, who is also very underrated, but I think Wan-Bissaka is template for a reason, and he kicks things off with Sunderland away from home. Then it's Chelsea, Nottingham Forest and Tottenham, which isn't particularly great from a defensive perspective, and I don't trust the Hammers defensively, but I think long term their fixtures are still solid enough, and you can have Wan-Bissaka rotating with a Nottingham Forest option like Murillo or Milenkovic, the likes of Lacroix at Crystal Palace, and other choices I've discussed in my recent podcasts. Even a Doggy or Van der Ven could rotate very well with West Ham defenders like Aaron Wan-Bissaka. But there's another one who is definitely worth considering, and that would be Kilman actually at 4.5 million. But going into the midfield, I think João Gomez could actually transform from a terrible FPL asset into a pretty decent one because of those defensive contribution points. So instead of 87 FPL points, he could easily get 120 plus actually. He got 3 goals and 1 assist last season with 9 yellow cards, so his disciplinary record isn't great, and his ownership is so low. He also classifies as a differential, there's no doubt about it. 0.1% ownership, but Wolves' fixtures are tough. I think that could still benefit the likes of João Gomez though, with ball recoveries and all these different actions like blocks, clearances and tackles, so he can get those defensive contribution points, and João Gomez could be decent in FPL this season. The same goes for Tonali, who was one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. He got 4 goals and 2 assists in the previous campaign, and his XGI was decent for a defensive midfielder at 7.45 with over 100 FPL points in the process. He will be overshadowed by Anthony Gordon, Anthony Elanga, and even Bruno Guimaraes, who can get even more goal contributions and also defensive points, but Tonali could be quite underrated at 5.5 million. He's not my favourite in terms of this position. I know in real life he's one of the best midfielders, but I think FPL wise there are better choices, and that includes a certain Moises Caicedo, who got 98 FPL points last season, but with defensive contributions he would have earned 42 points from those actions, and that will take his tally to a very respectable score of 140 FPL points at 5.5 million. That is excellent value, and its ownership is 7.6%. He only got 1 goal last season, but also 4 assists. I think he can add to that in this upcoming campaign and also get some bonus points, with the defensive points also playing a big factor in that. And Chelsea's opening fixtures are excellent. But I think my favourite 5.5 million midfielder is Elliot Anderson, at least when it comes to defensive contributions mixed with the goals and the assists. He got 8 goal contributions last season, 36 defensive contribution points, and 107 points overall. His ownership is also extremely low, another differential on this list, and the price tag is very appealing at 5.5 million. And Forest's opening fixtures are good enough in my opinion. There is Arsenal away in Game Week 4, but that could be where Anderson gets the most tackles, clearances, you know the rest, and that's where he can get those additional 2 points and be very consistent. So it will be the equivalent of in UCL Fantasy having a midfielder who gets 1 or 2 ball recovery points in every single match. So definitely watch out for Elliot Anderson, and the same goes for Daniel Marlon, but for a different reason. He only started 2 games last season for Aston Villa, but with no Marcus Rashford or Marco Asensio, he should get far more game time, and I think he was harshly treated by Unai Emery. He only got 3 goals, of course, since signing in January. His ownership is so low at 0.9%, and you might not see any green fixtures in the opening 4 game weeks, but Aston Villa are right up there in the fixture difficulty rating. In fact, they're top for the first 8 game weeks, and I think that 5.5 million price tag is so appealing for such an offensive player like Daniel Marlon with Champions League experience. He might get more game time in the Europa League, which would make him less appealing in the Premier League. And at this moment in time, you might argue Jacob Ramsey will play on the left and Morgan Rogers on the right, and then McGinn just behind Ollie Watkins. And if you want to see a predicted lineups podcast, then let me know down in the comment section below. But I think Reinders could be the very best 5.5 million midfielder, period, and he did feature in one of my recent drafts. He got 10 goals in Serie A last season with 5 assists, and even in UCL Fantasy, he scored thrice, and in all competitions, he got 20 goals and assists combined. His ownership is still very low though, at 5.2%, and Man City have excellent opening fixtures. Apart from Erling Haaland, not many of their players are nailed on. Assuming that Rodri is fit, of course that would be another choice, but with the defence, even Ait Nouri, you can't fully trust him. But I think Reinders will get 30 plus Premier League starts, and at 5.5 million with so many different avenues to points, I think he's very underrated, and if they can keep Rodri and Reinders fit, that is one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, at least on paper. Let's go on to another midfielder though, in Jorginho Rota, who has pretty decent fixtures overall, even though Brighton are ranked amongst the very worst over the first 5 game weeks, which I discussed in a recent podcast. He got 5 goals and 6 assists in his debut Premier League campaign with 50 shots, just under 100 FPL points, and the ownership is extremely low. Everyone will be looking at Mitoma and Danny Welbeck to cover Brighton offensively, but Jorginho Rota saves you 0.5 million in the process. So if you are looking for this sort of 6 million or below midfielder and also massive differential, I think Jorginho Rota could be one of the very best in FPL. I think Damsgaard is also very underrated. He only scored twice last season, but he got 10 assists and created 15 big chances, and he offered insane value last season. He does come in at 6 million this time round, but Brentford have decent fixtures overall, and despite losing several key players like Norgard and Brian Mbeumo, I still think Damsgaard can link quite well with whoever's left, and that might not be Visser, who is also linked with Newcastle, but irrespective of that, I think Damsgaard will get plenty of assists, bonus points, and be one of the best 6 million midfielders in the game. If you believe I've left out any other good names in any single position, that could be a goalkeeper, then let me know down in the comment section below. It is possible that some of your suggestions or players that you mention will be highlighted in future podcasts like differentials, just to kind of avoid too many clashes and having the same players covered time after time again. But Damsgaard certainly deserves a bit of credit for what he did last season, and he can replicate similar numbers in the upcoming campaign as well. The same goes for an underrated Thomas Soucek, who scored 9 times last season, got 2 assists and produced 11 big chances. He got 126 FPL points overall, and is yet another massive differential with 0.8% ownership. It is Sunderland away from home in game week 1. Then afterwards, for the first 4 game weeks, it's quite mixed bag on paper, but Soucek can score against any of those opponents, and his price tag is still quite favourable at 6 million. It might put you off that sometimes he plays in a deeper role, but he always makes those late runs into the box, and he's very difficult to deal with, especially in aerial situations. And apart from Bowen and Wan-Bissaka, I would argue that Soucek is the 3rd best West Ham asset overall. But now we are finally onto the forwards, and Fleming will be highlighted in future podcasts, especially if the demand is there for a newly promoted clubs video, for example. He scored 12 times in the Championship last season with 4 assists, and the XG was quite low in my opinion at 9.05, but he got 18 goal contributions across all competitions, and his ownership is 0.3%. There is Sunderland at home in game week 2, a common theme amongst a lot of these players, but the other fixtures are quite poor over the first 6 game weeks. The price tag is still quite decent at 5.5 million, but there is another striker I prefer, and that is Pirro from Leeds United. He got 19 goals in the Championship last season with 7 assists. He played 48 games, and the underlying numbers are much healthier than Fleming's with an XG figure of 17.17. It's Everton at home in game week 1. Then it's kind of mixed bag for Leeds United, especially compared to Sunderland, who have by far the best fixtures of the newly promoted clubs to start this season. But Pirro is one of my favourite options from any of those teams, and I think Leeds United have the best chance of staying up in the 2025-26 campaign. And last but not least is Cherno Barry. I think he'll start for Everton up front over Beto, so I would definitely avoid that sort of pick right now. And Barry's ownership is so low at 1.5%. He got 11 goals and 4 assists for Villarreal last season with 41 games played, and he scored 23 goals and provided assists as well in that process. So 23 goal contributions across all competitions, and the price tag is 6 million, and Everton's fixtures are quite decent. We're all going to gravitate towards Pickford, or particularly the likes of Tarkowski, Branthwaite and Mikalenko, but it might be worth going for an attacker Ndai is my personal favourite in the midfield, despite that reclassification. But in second, it would be Tierno Barry. He will be a great Dominic Calvert-Lewin replacement, and I think he'll start over Beto as the main number 9. If you haven't already, join my FPL mini league. The code is on screen, WFF0U7. There is a code in the description and an auto join link to make the process even simpler. And there are multiple links to check out across all my social media platforms. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or find it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether it's for FPL or UCL Fantasy, and we're getting extremely close to 34,000 subscribers. Follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for even more Game Week 1 content and more things to discuss throughout pre-season, and keep your eyes peeled for the Game Week 1 deadline stream.